following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin.
Hey everyone, I'm Christine.
I'm Jada.
And this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. I was just listening to the intro that we have, and I recorded that like a year and a half ago when we first started. And I was just listening to how I was like, and this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm like really into the word. I was like, man, I was like happy about that word that day. Bullshit. Oh my God.
Oh, I've never paid attention to it. Now I'm going to listen. That's funny.
We find out about, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. So hi everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. We're going to chit chat with a really great guest today who we are super excited to have back. Well, Steve Oskard was with us not too long ago. He was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes ago, so maybe a month. And we had started to kind of touch on a topic that he said he just couldn't wait to talk about it again. So he said to me that he has like this topic that he finds fundamental in his work with both, couples and individuals, and that he couldn't wait to talk about. And it's called agency, boundaries, and consent. So, which is what we titled the show, the ABCs of relationships and connection. So, well, I'm going to continue with what he wrote because I really have, nothing to contribute about that. I'm sure when we start talking with Steve, I might find a thing or two to, throw my hat in for.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I never say that I know anything about anything. I might know something about something, right, but I don't always know, and I'm not a dating coach. I'm not a guru with sex, and I just am experienced.
Well, that's just as good.
It's life experience,
Yes.
So yes. Steve says that he considers agency, that's the A in ABC, to be finding and knowing your voice, learning how to express it, and creating relationships where our voice will be honored and valued. I might have a thing or two to say about that. Boundaries for the B are knowing our no's and learning how to express them in an empowering way, empowering for anyone we engage with. I definitely have something to say about that. Okay. Consent is knowing our yeses and learning how to invite others into exploring them with us. And then blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So he also says that conversations about kink and BDSM are much easier to engage in once we've developed more of these fundamental communications. So I'm really interested to hear what Steve has to say about communicating in a more well-rounded way when it comes to, I guess, any kind of relationship, not just a dating relationship. Yeah. So today, for those of you who weren't here before, you need to go back and listen to the episodes. We've had Steve on before. He's amazing. He works with people for embodied counseling, sexological body work, and somatic sex education. He's been doing it for over 30 years. Steve is a really cool guy, and I'm super excited to have him back on the show. Let's bring Steve on.
I'm excited.
Me too.
Hi there.
Hello there.
How are you?
We're fabulous, Steve. Thanks for coming back and joining us.
And great to meet you in person, Jada. Well, sort of in person,
Kind
virtually
of in person. Virtually in person. I've talked to you a million times, but it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Have you guys not seen each other before? I mean, has Steve not been on the show when you've been with us?
No.
I think it was Jada. No, I'm sorry,
Janice. Yeah.
All these J names.
Yeah.
So yeah, Janice was with us before. So yeah, this is Jada. She is my co-host. She is the best. So Steve, tell us how you came up with this concept of ABC with what do I want to say? With relationships and communicating. Tell us more about that.
Well, I'm going to touch on something that you said before I came on. You said you don't know if you have anything to say about it. Well, I think that's where we all start. We don't know what we're talking about. And I think really leadership is the willingness to open your mouth and put your foot in it sometimes. You know, you might make a mistake. You might say the wrong thing.
All the time.
And who are you going to be when someone corrects you or adjusts you? And are you able to kind of stand there in the face of having said what you said and own it and say, hey, yeah, you're right. That is this and not this. And when I really started exploring what consent was, it really started to arise in our culture as a conversation right around the beginning of the Me Too movement. And they used consent as this word that came up when someone was violated, when someone's boundaries were violated. They would say, you know, that it was without consent. But consent is way more nuanced than that. It's not just about permission or not permission. And there are some wonderful somatic educators who have done a lot of work in this realm, and I've trained and studied with them, and mentors and colleagues of mine. And there's a very amazing tool called the Wheel of Consent. I may have mentioned it in the last time I was a guest.
I don't think so. What is the Wheel of Consent?
The Wheel of Consent was created by Dr. Betty Martin. You can look her up. She's got some great online resources as well as a book. Her book's called The Art of Receiving and Giving. And she developed the Wheel of Consent as a kind of like a lens through which we could examine how we interact with each other, particularly with regard to touch.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a great model for looking to see how we engage and what are the relationship dynamics that we are connected with, and take things apart and slow things down. And a lot of times in my work, I'll use some exercises, whether I'm working with a couple or an individual, where we slow things down and we take turns so that people can start to see, oh, I'm doing this for me, or I'm doing this for you. You know, sometimes when we are engaging, not just sexually or erotically, but just in the course of our day-to-day communications, I might say or do something for you. I might do something to you for you, or I do something to you for my pleasure or my curiosity or my learning, and vice versa. You might do something to me for you. You might do something to me for me. So there are different ways of acting and being with people where we engage. And if you actually are clear about what agency is, what boundaries are, and what consent is, there's a whole lot of clarity, and it avoids a whole lot of issues that people have coming up in their day-to-day relationships.
Nice. Okay, so tell us about agency. Let's start with A.
Yeah, agency, I think, really is knowing that you have a voice and your voice matters. So many of us think in terms of, you know, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go? You know, where deep down we really want to go for pizza, but we always acquiesce, or we don't really tune in and speak from what we want. So agency is knowing that your voice actually matters. Your thoughts, feelings, emotions, they are valid. You may not always get what you want, but finding a way to express that, or knowing and acknowledging whether you choose to express it or not, that is really the foundation of agency. And then learning to express it. And I think when you read what I wrote earlier, learning to express it, and also creating relationships where you know that they will be honored. Like, you're not going to have a relationship unless that this person honors what I have to say. We may not always do what I want, but they honor and they respect that I have choice and voice.
Why do you think that so many people have an issue with expressing what they want, even for something as simple as, oh, I want tacos for dinner, or I want to see this movie and not that one? I mean, why do you think that we are in that kind of place?
I think in a lot of ways we use our communication to validate something about ourselves or invalidate something about someone else, or we're seeking validation or approval. So if I'm not sure what you want, and I'm thinking I want tacos, like you said, but I think you might want something else instead, I might want to be, kind of hold back a little bit, not say, hey, I really want this. I might want to be more of a pleaser, or I might be conditioned that way from my history, from my childhood, from my previous dating relationships, to do what my partner likes. Maybe I have a view of myself that I'm overbearing, or I'm too big or outrageous, and I want to hold back. And and certainly when we're in the early stages of meeting someone, getting to know someone, we kind of hold things close to the vest a little bit and kind of take it easy and aren't as bold and outrageous as we may want to be. So I think in some ways we hold back and wait, and we're constantly gauging, is it safe to express myself? Do I want to express myself? Is this person going to honor me?
That's interesting. When it comes to something like that, I think that maybe in the past I might have been what you were talking about. Maybe was like, they may not want what I want, so I'll just let them choose or whatever. Now I just don't give a shit. I just I'm like, what? Quite frankly, I have no opinion on dinner. If you give me a choice, I'll choose. But I think most of the time when I do know when I want something, just by using the same example, I will say, I'm literally obsessed with pizza today and I've wanted it for a week. Let's have pizza. And if they don't want it, then why did they ask me? That's how I figure. They're open to what I want, or they were looking to please me, or they just are like me sometimes and don't have an opinion on what they want. So I get that. I do think that some people in the beginning of relationships, or in a relationship, they don't maybe feel like they have a voice. They may not ever speak it, and maybe just can, go with the flow and just say whatever you want, even if they absolutely hate it. I think when I was dating, and men would say, so where do you want to go to dinner? I'd say literally anywhere but this type of food. I just absolutely, if you want to damage the relationship from the beginning, take me to that kind of restaurant. Not quite like that, but yeah.
Well,
but what about you, Jada?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, no. But I was going to say, I think it can be tricky in the beginning because you're still trying to feel someone out. So women, we may really want, I don't know, lobster. I don't even eat meat, but let's just use that for an example. We may really want that, but we may say, oh no, I'll just have a salad, or let's go wherever you'd like, because you're still trying to figure out that person's communication style, or what they like, or where they're at, to make sure you're on the same page. But I agree. I agree, Christine, in a sense. I'm like that in the beginning, but no surprise, I have absolutely no problem speaking my mind and saying what I really want. But in the beginning, I can't be, just because I'm trying to figure the other person out.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I noticed when you were sharing that like sometimes when I go out to eat with my parents, and it's kind of assumed that they're going to treat. And if I were out, I might actually get something more expensive when I'm paying for myself. But I'm feeling a little bit worried that if I get what I really want, that's ordering something that's too expensive on the menu. They're going to think I'm crazy. So I think we all still have some of that. We just been talking about food so far, but we might have that around food. But then if we start to move it over and map that onto how we negotiate touch with a partner, who's going to initiate, and when do I initiate, and when do I receive, and am I ready to, and do I want to, what do I truly want, and where's my yes and where's my no? Finding your voice and knowing that you have a voice, and trusting that the person you're with is going to honor your voice. is
Mm.
quite subtle.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, when if we're transitioning into the sex part, in the beginning, when you start to sleep with when a woman, and I'm not speaking for every woman, I'm speaking for myself, but I do think that there's a large majority of women out there who feel the same way I have, is that when you're starting you're starting to have sex for the first time with somebody, it doesn't matter how long you've known them. It doesn't matter how many dates you've gone on or not gone on. That first initial time, if we are being, who we want to be, and our sexually aggressive ways, and take, just do what we want, we worry about being thought about as too aggressive or too promiscuous, or she is comfortable doing this with me, how many other men is she doing this with? And that really, really goes through our heads, that we kind of take a back seat and kind of let things kind of happen to us. And I think in my younger days, I definitely never said, "Oh yeah, no, please don't do that." In my mature age, I say, "Yeah, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, but that is not pleasant. So let's try not to do that. But if you do it this way, I guarantee I'll get there." And I'm much more communicative now, but in the past, I wasn't unsure about, how people were going to perceive me. But even in a new relationship or a new sexual partner, that's difficult for women.
Well,
which I think really touches on boundaries and consent too.
Yes. And what you're pointing to is where and under what circumstances and with whom am I suppressing my voice? And where did I learn that? And, where do I feel constrained, and why do I feel constrained in this connection with this person right here? And yes, it absolutely goes over into boundaries and consent, because boundaries might be, where am I not saying no? Or where am I being vague about what my no's are, that might be communicating to someone that I'm a yes. And where am I a yes, and I'm not actually inviting someone to engage with me this way because I'm trying to read their mind. I don't like what you said. I don't want them to think I'm too promiscuous. Like all the mental gymnastics we go through to try to read people's minds, that's all inside of agency, boundaries, and consent. Because instead of trying to mind read, and instead of trying to be a psychic, you're actually beginning communication about it. You're talking about it. And what I say a lot of times with people is having consent conversations can be really sexy. It can be fun and playful. It doesn't have to be heavy. And I think that's, how that whole culture of Me Too made consent conversations kind of heavy. Well, they don't have to be. They can be playful and light, and you can actually really honor someone's no, and then find out what they're yes to. It's like, okay, you're a no to making out. Well, you want to go for a walk and hold hands? And they're like, oh yeah, I love that. So that you're actually engaging in a way that's mutually enjoyable. You just might not be having the kind of progression sexually or erotically that you were hoping for. And so what? Guess what? It's not going to always go the way that you hoped.
When do you, I was just going to say, when do you suggest, or when do you think it's best to have those conversations? Because some people become intimate without even barely knowing one another. And then you want to go back and say, you know what, these are things I really like that you should know, or these are things I don't like. So when would you suggest, or just in the work that you've done, makes more of a successful relationship based off of that type of communication?
It's a great question, and it's a hard question because there's no formula for it. There's really no formula, because you might end up having engaged with someone beyond what you were ready to, and then have to go back and have some conversations like, wow, I actually went further than I wanted to. But I'll tell you something, that when you do that, when we don't have these conversations, we often tend to have disconnected sex, where we're not present. Part of us is wondering, why is this moving so fast? Or we're trying to read our partner's mind. Is this safe? Can I make a move now? Or do I wait? Or, do I say what I want? Or do I say no? So all these questions come up rather than just, hey, you want to talk about what we want to do tonight?
Yeah.
How about talk about it?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about something as you were talking, and I thought, am I going to admit this? Am I going to share? And I figured I fucking share everything, so why not?
Why not?
And it also, my hope in the whole concept of this podcast, my goal has always been to help somebody.
Yeah.
That by being vulnerable and opening myself about topics that people are afraid to talk about, women are afraid to talk about, that by doing that somebody may get some relief, or some, oh my God, I'm not the only one kind of thing. And in my earlier shows, especially when I had my best friend Gabby was my co-host, we talked a lot about sex on the first date and not even caring, just like we are sexual beings and we're okay with it. And if we just want to have sex, we will have sex, just like a man doesn't even decide. He just, will do it. So with that being said, I have found in my past, obviously not now, but not the too far distant past. This may be only like a year or so ago that the last time this happened to me, and it wasn't the first, and it was a lot. That how do I'm having a hard time putting this into words. And not be emotional about it, because it's really affecting me today.
This happens around
It's
me a lot.
really, it's knocking me on my ass, and I did not think that it would bother me to talk about. So, women, myself in particular, I find that I literally prefaced this with somebody. I spoke about it before we did our date. I said, not having sex with you. Not. I just want to take it slow and get to know each other. That's it. Please try not to pressure me, because I'm telling you, almost every man that I had gone out with in the last few years would immediately pressure me for sex. Immediately. And that's a very uncomfortable thing. That used to be a very uncomfortable thing for me.
Yeah.
So
sure.
this, yeah, exactly. So this situation is one that I've found myself in many times, where I would be with this person and be having fun and laughing and getting to know them, and it's fun and it's a little sexy, and we've talked a little about things that are kind of like a turn on. It's kind of like woo. And sometimes the vaguest things can be a turn on for me, because it's when a man talks to me that turns me on, or communicates with me, or looks me in the eye. Those things get me. So just the little things are getting me. And I felt, okay, I could kiss this person. And it went to kissing, and it went to immediately he's taking my clothes off and trying to take his clothes off, or trying to take my clothes off, and trying to go straight to sex. And I've found in the past, anybody who's listened to the show has known that I've been raped many times by dates who I've said no to, and they don't take no for an answer. So I think in my mind, I had gotten to the point that I thought, well, if I don't say no, then it's not against my will. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then I don't have to suffer with that. But if I just do what I have to do to get it over with quickly, because as women, we know what will get it over quickly. And I wanted to make a joke out of that, but I don't feel comfortable making a joke out of it at the moment. So I find that I'm so sorry. Wow, this hit me. I find that if we just go through the motions and get it over with, that it's done and he can go home and I can never fucking see him again. So I think that was a turning point the last time that happened to me. That was a turning point for me, that I was like, okay, I'm literally done. I'm never going to be in a situation where I'm in this again, because this to me is almost as close to being as raped as I can be. So, sorry. I'm trying not to cry all over my microphone. So I find this conversation is I swore I had nothing to say in the beginning, but now I have way too much to say. So I find that this, I think, is a really relevant conversation.
Absolutely.
How can we empower men and women who have been in my situation,
Yeah.
feel empowered to say, look, I told you I'm not interested in this going any further than just, this hugging or you kissing me or holding my hand. It's too soon, and feel comfortable to where that doesn't come off to where we feel like we're in jeopardy or danger or whatever. Do you
Yeah.
have an answer for that, or am I just,
No, I have, I don't know I have an answer, but I definitely have a response. And
Wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted.
yeah, and first, to acknowledge that it was really painful, and I'm so sorry that
I
that
didn't
happened.
realize it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that you really give an example of feeling like you didn't have agency, that your voice didn't matter. It wasn't honored in the past,
Yeah.
and let me just wait and get it over with.
Yeah.
That became the person you became
Yes.
because you didn't find that sense of agency in your previous experiences, or you had enough previous experiences that told you, let me just be quiet here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really start out is really reclaiming your voice and knowing that your voice will be honored or you're
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah.
Like you draw the line in the sand, like you said, you've drawn the line. I will never have an experience like that again, is what you said. I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing, but it's something. And
Yeah.
guess what? You won't.
Yeah, I didn't. I also was making different choices in the people too. Before I
Yeah,
was just like,
Yeah.
that's all part of it.
allow. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
fits together.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
didn't think.
unfortunately. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to say, I didn't think that maybe I was at a point in my life where I didn't think I was worthy, or I should have had a voice, or deserved something or not.
Yeah.
And I did a breath work class in the privacy of my home, and I did breath work. And my first breath work really was the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I had this crushing, overwhelming, huge experience of, oh my God, I've never felt worthy. And then as I worked through it through the breathwork class, I realized, what the hell? I'm worthy for me. That's
Yeah.
all that matters. And
Yeah.
who I started choosing in my life and who I started allowing into my life and choices that I was making completely changed.
Yeah.
So, Jada, have you ever gone through anything like that?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But I have not. I have gone through situations where it started to get a little far, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what am I like? This is definitely not what I want. But the people that had happened with totally respected that, and it was just that. So no, I have not had that particular situation happen. To be honest, I don't even know how I would handle it if that happened. I don't even. I mean, just like you said, I would probably be like, okay, let me just do what I have to do to get this over with, and then I would just hope not to see that person again. But no, I haven't had that happen. I've had friends that have a hard time having those conversations in the beginning because they feel they're going to be judged, or they're going to be looked at a certain way, or they feel, well, you know what? He may say, you've gone this far. Why do we need to have a conversation now? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah.
So Steve, you're saying instead of getting to the place where I was and I say, or like Jada say, whoa, this is not where I want to be, that we should be having these conversations before we get to that point.
Yeah. And I think we're going through a shift in our culture where people are learning the value of these conversations. And, you know, we could talk all day about the patriarchy and how this has been sorely missing from our sexual connections brand new partners and even partners we've been with for a long time.
Yeah.
These conversations are fundamental to our honoring one another. And the first person to honor is yourself and your own voice. And, you know, as painful as it was to learn that lesson, and some of us are really lucky to not have to go through feeling violated or raped to learn those lessons.
Right.
You arrived, you learned. I will never have this experience again. And, you know, there's a fine line between victim blaming. This could slip into victim blaming. That's not what I mean at all. But you had the experiences that you had that allowed you to learn that lesson. And what as it was, you learned it. And some people are lucky enough to never have to go through the pain of that. To know that their voice matters. And they're not the ones picking people who will violate their boundaries or violate them in any way. So again, I'm sorry that, you know, that everyone had that experience. And really,
it shapes a person.
Yeah. I also see that it's time for men to step up and learn these conversations too. And I don't mean just men. I mean anyone who's initiating sharing their desire, expressing their desire. Because I work with all genders and all sexual orientations. Anyone who's initiating their desire, expressing their desire, needs to really also step into having these conversations. So it's not always the victim who comes forward and shares having learned about it through these tragic experiences. It's actually people who are stepping forward and saying, "Hey, how might tonight go? What do you want to do tonight?" You know, and actually talking about, you know, is kissing on the menu? You know, maybe not, maybe. And you know, how are we gonna enjoy each other? And then when you say no, it's like, great, because if you're a no to something, you're a yes to something else.
Yeah.
What you're a yes to is ending the date and going home and reading a book. I don't know. It might have nothing to do with the person.
Sometimes, Steve, sometimes.
You're yes to something. Can you keep moving the night in the direction of what you're a yes for, even if it means, hey, I've had a nice time, I want to go home now.
But you know what, Steve, you said something actually just a few minutes ago about, I know we've been basing this conversation on like meeting someone in the very beginning, but there are couples, I'm sure, that have been together for a long time, or even marriages. Well, sometimes you just don't feel like you're there, and you still have to have those conversations. But one party may say, what are you talking about? We've been together for 4 years. Like, why are we doing this? Do you see that happen with couples that have been in relationships?
Yeah, all the time. And one of the best conversations I love having with people is two sides of the conversation. One is, can you celebrate your partner's desire, even if you're a no? So if your partner engaged says, I want to have sex, and you're like, yeah, I just want to read my book tonight, or I want to lie on the couch and watch Netflix. Can you celebrate? Oh, I'm so excited that you want to have pleasure. What do you want to do? You know, maybe they want to masturbate.
Yeah.
Awesome. Go do that. Or, you know, do you want me to watch? Or, you know, do you want to leave the room, or do you want me to leave the room? So it's actually, you're just laying it out on the table. Hey, I want to have pleasure tonight. I want to have sex. And the other partner says, well, I'm not a yes, but I'm all for you having pleasure. I'm just not going to participate. And then the other way around is, can I truly ask for what I want, knowing that you're going to be a yes to me having pleasure, even if you don't want to participate? What
you said something.
Conversations.
I think that you touched on something that I have really thought a lot about, is that when people are in, like Jada said, in a relationship for some time, I find that people are almost afraid to have conversations with their spouse because they don't want to, or not so much a spouse, but a partner of some sort, that maybe won't want to rock the boat, or they feel like they're not being validated, or they feel like they're not being listened to. So they tend to just go, well, whatever, I just give up. And so when I was dating, and I would ask men all the time, so, you know, why did you divorce? What went south in your relationship, because at some point you were madly in love, so much so that you asked them to marry you and went through the wedding and went through the honeymoon and had these years together. What happened? Why did you stop communicating? And they would say, well, I'm a sexual being and I wanted to have sex a lot, and my spouse or my significant other no longer wanted to have sex. And I would really stop, and there are a few times I actually had the guts to say, so you weren't listening to her. So what happened in the relationship that she shut down so much that she no longer is sexually attracted to you? And they would get really upset with me because they didn't want to hear that they had any contribution to it. They still wanted her. Why couldn't she still want them? And I think that in relationships, whether you're married, not married, together a long time, whatever, that communication, like you said, is the most important thing. And evolving with the relationship, like changing the conversation as our relationship changes, because sex may be exciting in the beginning, but maybe that person's not listening to the other person, and maybe one of them is not speaking up. And so they no longer want to have sex, and so then the relationship deteriorates. So I do agree that communication is huge.
What would it have been like if any of these guys that you asked had said, I was too afraid to learn how to communicate?
Then I would have changed my mind. I would be with them today. But when they were like, oh, it was all about sex, I'm like, well, you're never going to listen to me. And we are not going to be able to communicate. And you have not done your work because you are still bitter about not having sex.
I was too afraid to learn how to communicate, or I was too afraid to deal with my own shame. So I blamed my partner. It's really, and we could easily be talking about men having this issue or women. And like I said, I work with all genders and all relationship constructs, where if a partner is unwilling to have conversations that are challenging, you're just kind of left with the limitations of your communication. I mean, I say this to couples all the time, that when you first meet someone and you begin engaging sexually with them, if you crash together and it's fireworks, that's awesome. You have great sex, wonderful. But I say to couples, you actually have a better chance at having spectacular sex if it doesn't start out as fireworks in the beginning, because you have to learn how to communicate early on. What do you want? How do I ask for what I want? What do you want? How do I listen and learn to give you what you want, or provide something? Or when is this for me? When is this for you? I mean, you start to learn that it's way more than just crashing together and hoping for fireworks.
How would you suggest to people listening that they could start this conversation with their significant other?
So are we talking early on in dating, or are we talking about someone who's already with?
Let's talk about somebody who's in a relationship. I think that in dating, we evolve and learn as we go with our own selves. And I think that when people do the work for themselves and they realize, like I did, that I deserve better and I'm worthy and blah, 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 that they can choose better people to be with, and not just take something because they think they don't deserve it. That's a whole nother ball game. I'm talking about now where people are actually in a relationship, and they see a deterioration happening, or the fireworks are not as fireworky anymore, and they're like, oh shit, do we have anything left in the relationship? Is there anything still in the barrel? So what can we do to step that up? What can we do to feel comfortable and safe to go, hey, can we have a conversation tonight and it not go haywire? What are your suggestions for that?
Great question. First of all, I would say that deal with your own self about the topic first. Because if you're entering the conversation and there's storm clouds overhead and it's heavy and serious, you're just going to dump that into the conversation, and your partner's going to be frozen or like, "Ooh, God, I don't want
my
to."
God.
So start to really work through. Okay, what is it that I'm upset about? What am I disappointed about? What's not working for me? So like write it down and kind of get, okay, these are my complaints, and come from this place of, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for all of this, and how can we begin to play? Because if it's the way that it is and it's your fault and all we're going to be doing is trying to hash out, it's like a tennis match. This is your fault. No, this is your fault. Back and forth and back and forth. So unless you actually start to bring back some of the playful curiosity that was once present, because that's where it starts at, it's like you don't know what feels good in the beginning. And you're just kind of playing around and touching and being touched. And most of us don't attach words and ask for things. So find a way to bring some playfulness back to it. And if I make sure a game that I share all the time, it's one of the most useful tools that I work with individuals and couples. And it's called the 3-minute game. And earlier I shared about the Wheel of Consent and Dr. Betty Martin. She's got a ton of free resources on her website. She also wrote a book called The Art of Receiving and Giving. I feel like I'm always sharing about her work because it's just so foundational, and it basically simplifies creating a safe container for exploration with a partner. And she created the Wheel of Consent out of what's called the 3-minute game. And the 3-minute game is made of 2 questions. The first question is, how would you like me to touch you for 3 minutes? So partner B, I ask you, how would you like me to touch you for 3 minutes? Then you actually have to think, how do I want to be touched? So that's where agency begins. Like, what do I want? I want this, I want that. And how do I formulate the words? For some people, knowing what they want is the hard part. I know what I want. I've never asked before. Nobody's ever asked me.
Right.
So
I've never asked myself that. Yeah.
Same. Me too.
Yeah. And for some people, it's, I know what I want, but I've never really, it's never come out of my mouth. How do I ask for it? Some people, it's both, knowing what I want and asking for it. So the first question, although it's a simple question, can be really challenging for people. So the partner A asks partner B, how would you like me to touch you for 3 minutes? Then that first person has to really think about it. And then they come up with the words and they say, will you massage my shoulders for 3 minutes? And that's not just then partner A doesn't just go and automatically do it. Partner A now has to think, am I willing to do that for 3 minutes? Like, am I willing to give this gift with an open heart? Or is it an obligation? Or am I just kind of going through the motions?
I think some women might be afraid that might be the situation, that if they ask for something that they really want and their partner goes, I don't want to do that for 3 minutes, then you're like, well, if they won't even hear me, which I just bared my soul about something I really wanted for 3 minutes, and they're not willing to do that, what the fuck am I going to do for the next 30 years?
Okay, well, slow down. That's why we're trying. That's why we start small. That's why we start with a shoulder massage or something really simple, so that if your partner does say no, it's just like, okay, well, will you scratch my back so you can come back with something else? So it's, first of all, it's a game.
Okay.
So you have to remember, it's not like, oh my God, like the next 30 years of our relationship. No,
women are like that, Steve. I hate to tell you that they're so dramatic. No, I'm kidding. It's kind of true.
You get to dismantle that part of you. Men can be the same way. That part of you that's like thinking that if they say no to this little thing, the blah blah blah, the whole story you have attached to it, you get to start to take it apart and see, oh my God, look how much meaning I have attached to somebody saying no.
Yes.
So that's why this simple little game is really profound.
Okay, so how do they continue this game? Like, does it go to the next person?
Yeah. So the next part is, once we get to a yes, then we start the timer, but only when it's a yes.
Okay.
So
all right. And if it's a yes and no, do they, like you said, negotiate? Well, how about this then?
Exactly.
Okay, so they make it fun.
Partner B asks for something else.
Okay.
Until you find you land. So that what you start to see is consent is not just permission. Consent is a negotiation that you arrive at together. Where both people are empowered. So we only have a few minutes left, so I want to get to the other parts of it. And by the way, again, you can go look for the schoolofconsent.org. They've got some great free videos and resources.
School of
Consent.
Schoolofconsent.org. And
I think I don't know how to spell. How the hell do you spell consent? CONC.
SENT.
SENT. See, I thought it was an S. I mean a C. SENT. dot what? Com or org?
Org.
All right. Schoolofconsent.org. I just wanted to put it up so DJ can put it on the screen for us.
And there are just some wonderful consent educators like myself that work with these tools. Have it be playful. This is just one of the things that I work with, but it's so empowering.
How to be playful. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
like
there's different ways for people. Yeah. I mean, I know we only have a few minutes, but how about one other exercise, Steve, that you could give to the people that could be fun?
There's the second question. Let me just answer completely. Okay. And like I said, you can go to the website.
There's more to the game. What am I doing?
After you arrived at a yes, you set a timer for 3 minutes, and then you complete the 3 minutes and both people share what they learned. And then you switch, and it's the other way around. And then there's the second question. The second question, now it's back to partner A, ask partner B, how would you like to touch me for 3 minutes? So in the first question,
like this.
The first question I ask you, play it with your partner. I promise you it'll be wildly insightful. The first question.
Okay.
I want to report back to me too. I want to hear it.
I'm gonna. You're coming back to tell you what we did.
Awesome. So the first question, I ask you the question, I'm doing the touching. I'm giving the gift of my touch to you. You're accepting that gift. And you're not just accepting any gift, you're accepting the gift that you asked for.
The gift that you asked for. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not just giving you what I think you want. I'm giving you a gift that you truly have asked for. With the second question, I'm asking the question, you're touching me, and I'm giving the gift of my body to touch so that you can explore. It's for your pleasure, your curiosity, your learning. And I'm giving you the gift, but I'm not just agreeing to anything. I'm agreeing to what is in consent for me that I'm willing to give. It may not be my cup of tea, but I'm willing to have you touch me that way for 3 minutes. And you're exploring for your pleasure, for your learning, not to please me. So I know that's a really quick brushstroke. I might spend a whole half hour creating the whole game with a couple and then have them play it in front of me.
I love it.
I love that. Okay.
I always recommend that people start with the G-rated version.
Yeah, I was going to say G-rated because it's in front of you.
You can play the naked version at another time.
Nice. Well, they're just practicing to be able to go home and go, quote unquote deeper. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is cool. This is very cool. I think that the next time I have you come on, because I'm going to have you back again, we could maybe touch on to the topic that we were talking about when you said, "Oh, what relationship with people who've been together or when they're dating?" And maybe we can talk about then tools that people can use to help them further themselves in communicating with dating, because that's tough. You don't know the other person, and it might be scary. Okay, cool. Well, Steve, thank you for coming and talking to us about this really awesome conversation. And Jada for being here today. I appreciate it. And To all of our listeners, we hope you come back again next week. And it's the same time, same place. And until then, let's keep it real. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50shades_bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.